In the last video of this series, we talked to you about how people get sick. We talked about the fact that your job as a person in the food industry is to make sure that your customer does not get sick. To do that, you have to break the infection chain by controlling your environment. In this video, we're going to talk to you about exactly how to do that. Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Dr. Yu. Welcome to our channel. This is Microbiology Explained. This is a food safety series in which we're going to be diving into the ins and outs of the food safety system and food safety as far as microbiology is concerned. And we're going to talk to you in this video specifically about the environmental monitoring program. In this series, we dive into the ins and outs of food microbiology. We talk about the good actors, we talk about the bad actors with respect to food, and we talk about things which help you keep yourself and your customers safe. So, without further ado, just a recap as to what we talked about in the last video. I showed you the chain of infection. In the chain of infection, you have some sort of agent, in this case, salmonella. You have a reservoir where the agent normally stays, the outside skin of the chicken and the intestines of the chicken, and then a portal of exit. Whenever the chicken lays its eggs, sometimes salmonella attaches to the eggs and moves through. From that portal, you have a mode of transmission in which you go from one particular location, the farm, to the grocery stores where it's chilled, to finally your kitchen cabinet into your fridge, and that carries the agent, salmonella, all the way through the chain. And then lastly, there's a portal of entry, usually in this case, food, and then you consume the egg if it's not cooked properly. And unfortunately, if you're susceptible as a host, you or I can get sick. Your job as a food individual, somebody in the food industry, is to break this chain. We delved a little bit more into this particular image. I got it from the CDC. It's called the epidemiology triangle. These are the three factors which interact, which cause infections to take place. The host, you and I, the agent, virus, bacteria, protozoa, fungus, whatever the case may be, and then the environment that you, I, and the agent inhabit or interact with one another. I'm going to focus on the environment for this video and talk to you a little bit more about the environment. To better grasp it, here's an image which I also got from the CDC. It's about the food supply chain. You have to ask yourself, where in this chain do you lie? Typically, a food supply chain starts with some sort of harvesting or farming, whether it's the cows, the wheat farmed in the fields, then some sort of distribution or processing, whether it's the husking of the wheats, the pasteurization of the milk, the repackaging, making into cheese. That will be further processing. That happens at this level. And then the next level, you have the restaurants and the retail stores. Sometimes we interact directly with the restaurants. Sometimes the retail stores, like the grocery stores, where we buy our food and then we consume it. Then the next level, you have the food safety, the food service individuals, the waiters, the staff like that in the restaurants and bars. And then you have your own home with the home chef and all the rest. And so all of us watching these videos are at some place or the other in the food chain, or sometimes more than one place in the food chain. And so the first question you have to ask yourself or understand is, where are you in the food chain? And what products do you handle? More specifically, what processes do you use to handle that product? Once you've asked those questions and outlined them in a clear format that you understand, ask yourself then, what is the risk? What is the biological risk to happen to the food to make the food go bad or spoiled, etc., etc.? Let's use a simple example that we all can relate to. Let's talk about milk. In the case of milk, the initial point is the cows in the field. And as a farmer, your particular processes are milking the cows, and the biological risk is other material from the cows entering the milk. And so you want to make sure that you're controlling for preventing such materials from entering the milk as much as possible. Then you move on with the trucks which take it into the distribution or processing plants, in which case you have lots of huge silos and lots of piping and all the rest. And so from a biological perspective, some of your concerns in a processing plant can be what sort of microbes are in the pipes, how do I check for biofilms which are there, how do I clean them, how frequently do I clean them, when should I be worried about them. In the grocery store, your own processes are different. Your processes are the storage and preservation of the food and what sort of microbes can you encounter there. You may be more concerned about your staff and how they handle it. So you ask yourself where in the supply chain you are, what are your processes, and What are the risks associated with the process? What sort of microbes can be introduced into your food at that point in time? So you have to have an environmental program which checks the environment and looks for the specific pathogens which affect your food and does so well and effectively. One way of organizing your program, which is provided by the CDC, FDA, GFSI schemes, lots of bodies propose this program, is dividing your entire facility into zones. Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3, Zone 4. Zone 1's being the most critical, Zone 4's being the least critical. Zone 1's are your food contact areas. If you're in a restaurant, then that will be the plates that you use to serve your customers, the table that you use to prep the food, the knives, the forks, the spoons. Those will all be zone one. Um, those will all be zone one surfaces. Zone two will be those surfaces close by, but not directly contacting the food. The tables, maybe the middle floor around, maybe a few of the gadgets around, the handles, things like that. Those are close enough to, that they may be affecting the food, but not directly contacting the food. Zone threes will be the walls, the lights, the ceilings, the floor, everything else around, which is in the same production area as the food, but doesn't come into contact. And lastly, zone four will be things like the office, the break room, places which are far away, but still in the same vicinity, so they may affect your food, but they don't come to direct contact with your food. Why is this important? Well, first of all, it enables you to determine what sort of risks are associated. The risks associated with directly food contact surfaces are different and more critical than those associated with the zone 3s and zone 4s. Yet those zone 3s and zone 4s still have to be checked. A good environmental program will sample all these areas, zone 1 to 4, in different ways and will determine the frequency of those sampling and determine what action needs to be taken. Maybe you will sample zone 1s more frequently because of food contact, and then zone 4s just occasionally because they're not food contact. That'll be based on your own program. But after sampling all those zones, a certain action limit can be determined, as in above this certain threshold of whatever criteria it is. If something goes wrong, this is the action that will be taken. And the action limit can be justified with historical data. Because a good program has been going on for several months in which you're monitoring what is going on, and you can justify any of your actions or lack of actions because you have historical data of what your facility looks like. In order to have a good environmental program, there is first and foremost there's a sensory, visual or sensory component of it. I say visual because the first thing you have to do is look, smell, sample, touch the various zones and surfaces to see whether or not they're clean or hygienic enough to process food. That's the first step you take. Then you go on to more sophisticated tools like ATP, APC, all sorts of swabs, which we will talk about in the other videos. These are nice scientific tools which enable you to take samples from the environment and detect whether or not something is going wrong or some microbes are present. I like to emphasize that you should have an action, then detection, then action, and then detection chain. Action meaning some sort of cleaning, some sort of process that you have, then detection to check whether the process works well, then further action in case a detection fails, and you keep on going until you reach acceptable limits determined by the historical data in your facility. What are the benefits of having a program? I mean, why should you go through all this work, right? After all, you were fine before, quote unquote. No, you're not always fine. One way of having an environmental program is you have a systematic scientific way of measuring hygiene. How clean is your environment? How well is your sanitation program working? That's a very important question. Second, it can help you reduce spoilage just by making sure that the levels of bacteria or viruses or fungi in an environment are below a certain level. You can prolong the shelf life of your food, meaning you don't have to rush to cook it quickly. You have less things going to waste because they're getting spoiled. It'll give you trends. Trend data is so powerful because then you can see, during the summer, certain things go up activity wise in bacteria. Then I have to change my practices. But during the winter, I don't have to change my practices because it goes down. Those trends enable you to plot and plan far better. A good system can save you money on the long run. Most importantly, it will keep your customers safe. In the next videos, we're going to talk to you about detection methods, like I've talked about ATPs, APCs, pathogen-specific detection methods, how they work. Do you really need them at all? Maybe you don't. Maybe you do. That's something you have to decide. But at least we'll give you information in which you understand those systems better. We talk in our book, which is coming out in some months, about how you can audit your system as a whole, and maybe some of that material will be helpful. On our website, we have some excerpts of the book, which will be available for you to read and see whether or not it's useful to you at all. And then we recommend sometimes, and most of the time, at least hire a professional to assess your whole system and give you some feedback and help you with the specific problems that you may encounter in your food truck, in your bar, in your restaurant, wherever you work in the food industry. So, in summary, break the chain of infection. Your responsibility is to break that chain, and to do so, you control the environment. Develop a specific program with zones in mind, zone 1 being the food contact, zone 4 being the areas away from food contact, and everything in between, and use systematic scientific methods to assess the effectiveness of your program. You will save costs and you will protect your customers. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate your attention and time. We know it's valuable to you. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Put your comments below. What do you think of the videos? What should we improve on? What should we do better? What should we do differently? What parts of food microbiology are you interested in? And hopefully we'll read your suggestions, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.